is, right? Like boring's good. Like dialed systems, clean team, hitting KPI, good healthy growth. Chaos isn't great for business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Naturally, when you're bootstrapping a company, there's a level of chaos that is baked in and you're gonna have to learn it. But when you start running real businesses at real scale, there should be a level of boringness happening. That's how you know everything's great.
All right, guys, got someone I've known for a long time. We haven't seen each other in a while, dude.
For
Brodie
sure.
Kern, how's it going?
Good, man. It's good to be here. In the days kind of leading up to this, I was thinking about our relationship and like the interactions that we've had, and we really haven't gotten to spend a lot of time together in person. But you've always been super friendly to me and helpful to me, and I've tried to return the favor as much as possible. But I appreciate the way that you've shown up for me, even just being like, slightly more than an acquaintance.
Yeah, no, likewise. And it's cool to have you on because you're kind of on a media hiatus. We were talking about it.
Yeah. I've been kind of out of the game for the last year, which we can talk about. I went through a whole number of things, and kind of as I turned 30 last fall, and really kind of shifted the way that I was doing some things and thinking about.
Did you have a little midlife crisis or something?
Yeah, it was like, man, I had been running for those listening, it's like for 5 years, I was the go-to guy for mindset and personal development. You know what I mean? I ran probably the largest coaching company in that space. If you were a male entrepreneur between the ages of, 23 and 40, it was like Wake Up Wealthy was almost a rite of passage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you went through it. All the biggest guys in coaching, who were in that age bracket, like I coached them in Wake Up Wealthy. And after 5 years of doing that, over 1,000 high ticket clients through there, it was just like, I'd done so much great work, and like we had done a lot of really amazing things, but here I was running this, really large coaching company and 25 people on my team, tons of overhead. And like, it just got to the point where I was tired and like coaching, creating content, all felt like a job. And I was just like, dude, I'm not happy. And the things that used to excite me about like coaching guys on their habits and their mindset and stuff all felt very monotonous. And when I used to love it, you know what I mean? And so it got to this point where I also wasn't like, not only was it not serving me anymore, but I wasn't in the best place to be able to service those clients anymore either. And we had 6-7 coaches on the team, but still it was me. And if my heart wasn't in it, that bled down.
100%.
And so, I spent some time like really wrangling with the decision of like, what do I do there? And ultimately decided to start scaling it down to figure out what I wanted to do with myself. I was turning 30. I had been grinding hard as since I was pretty much 21 when I got out of rehab. And, I'd learned a ton, but it was just like in the 5 years running Wake Up Wealthy, I had changed so much. The market had changed so much. And not to mention, that was a really hard offer to sell. You know what I mean? It was like, it was the thing that everybody needed and nobody wanted.
They didn't want to admit they needed it.
They didn't want to admit that they needed it. And then when you think about me competing for advertising space with everybody else in the coaching space, I was like, hey, come in and like really deal with your where everybody else is like, hey, make like $200,000 a month like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, I was just competing so much harder with an offer that like just wasn't that great.
The results weren't as quick in their head.
The results weren't as quick, and it was just like, it was a lot more work for them. You know what I mean? Like we had to really get down to business on like, what the is wrong with you?
Right.
And where like you could install someone else's DM campaign and like print money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we made dudes a lot of money and we're really great coaches and consultants, but it was just, there was so much that needed to be done. And like, dude, working with guys at like that intimate of a level, it was just like, you take on a level of their right? And after years and years and years of it, I was just really tired.
Yeah.
And so ultimately made the decision to scale it down and figure out what I wanted to do. And I have some other businesses that I'm involved in, and, things are chill for me. But one thing that happened that was crazy is I didn't realize how much of my identity was going to go down with it. Once it kind of finally, the dust settled and it went away, I kind of got depressed for a while.
Wow.
I was like, what is my
purpose?
What is my purpose? What is the mission that I'm on? Did I make the right move? I mean, I just turned off a $300,000 a month faucet, and I was like,
and you were used to that for years.
That was, yeah. And I was like, what did I just do? There was no, putting the cat back in the bag.
Right.
It was like, it's over. You took all the decisions to truly shut it down. And so I had to like come to terms with that. And my wife and I got pregnant with our second kid. And so there's just so much going, anytime you have, and I went through this what was interesting is when I was going through this with my first son was when I was starting Wake Up Wealthy. When I was about to, I basically started Wake Up Wealthy right around the time that I had my first son, Cruz, who's 5 now. And, it was interesting that this all timed up with when I ended up having my second kid, because I was like, okay, we're entering a new phase, and like I need to figure out what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to coach anymore. I knew that. I mean, dude, I coached 1,000 guys in so many different spaces. Like, I could step in any business I want and make it work.
You've heard the story 100 times.
Yeah, I've done it. I've put my hands on so many different problems in so many different industries. Like, I just get it.
Yeah.
I see the matrix up to a certain point. And I was like, okay, so if I can do anything, what do I want to do? And I'm kind of setting my life up differently right now. And so I decided that I did miss coaching and I wanted to do it a little bit, but I didn't want it to be my main thing. And so I rolled out a 12-month purely business focused offer. It's $12,000 for the year. And so it was like, I wanted it to be a no-brainer sell, right? It's like, if you know me and you have a high ticket service, my guys I'm like, if you're doing between 20 and 50K a month, want to go over 100K a month and are like willing to spend the time doing it, like I'll help you. And it's like, looking at my track record, it's like, if you have a high ticket service, like need to get you 1 client a quarter? It's like, come on. Yeah. Everybody knows I can do that. And so then for me being at a $12,000 offer, it's like, if I take 10 clients a month, like there's a good $100,000 a month. It's like, whatever. I can handle 10 clients a month, just me personally on group calls, and it's super chill, super easy to deliver. I used to take 40 clients a month. You know what I mean?
That's a lot.
Yeah, dude, we were doing a lot of people. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to get coaching set up to, get me my little $100,000 a month and chill, have fun with it, right? And then we got the content agency and the studio that we built out, and that's kind of my cash flow stuff, right? That like handles my life and brings money in and whatever. And then, I've got my long-term stuff. I got really involved in real estate again last year. Bought 17 single-family homes back in Missouri.
Wow.
And probably do about the same this year, and just going to continue to stack that. And then, I was thinking a lot about what do I want to do in my 30s, because like I did just spend my 20s grinding like crazy. I was known to be a guy who's just like full speed, everything.
I saw you used to get up at 4:45 a.m. every day.
Every day, dude. I mean, when I met you, I was running 50 miles a week, training for ultra marathons and building the business and being a dad. Like I'm like, oh, I've always been full speed. And, I'm like, okay, I at least got another 10 years of that in me. I think I can do that at least for another 10. But I think I might get tired after that. And so we need to make sure that this 10 years, like, in your 20s, you kind of learn a lot, you make a lot of mistakes. Yeah, I made a lot of money or whatever, but I also like lost a lot of money and, was just playing the game, running fast, learning. And I said, okay, by the time I'm 40, I really need to be set up. And for me, my number's kind of 25 million, safely invested, 5 to 7% dividend a year. It's like, it's $100,000 a month passive, right? And so like, that's the target for the next 10 years is like, we got to get 25 million safely put away. Yeah. And so I've got my cash flow stuff. I've got my super long-term, like tax advantageous stuff. And then like, I've got a couple projects, a direct to consumer brand and another brand that I'm working on that are kind of my moonshot things. It's like, what can I focus on for these next 10 years that has like a big opportunity for exit? And so that's kind of my like focus right now. It is cash flow, long-term moonshot. Yeah. Because I would like to go on to focus on other things, which we'll talk about today. And this, like, business is kind of boring. Yeah. And like, the better you are at doing it, theoretically, the more boring it is, right? Like, boring's good. Like, dialed systems, clean team, hitting KPI, good, healthy growth. Chaos isn't great for business. Yeah. You know what I mean? Naturally, when you're bootstrapping a company, there's a level of chaos that is baked in and you're going to have to learn it. But when you start running real businesses at real scale, there should be a level of boringness happening. That's how you know everything's great, right? And so I just don't have the love for business that I thought I did. And like when you're in your 20s, I mean, I'm sure you remember when we were first making really cool money. Yeah. We're like, oh, wow, this is...
It's like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah, it's like, this is crazy, especially if you didn't come from a lot. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I remember the first time, like when I got out of rehab, and the next year I made 6 figures, multiple 6 figures.
And that probably felt crazy.
I was like, this is more money than I thought was ever going to happen. Yeah. Then a couple years later, it was like, first 6-figure month, right? Then you have your first $1 million year. Then you go on and do other crazier things. I mean, you've had $1 million days. You know what I mean? It's like, you just realize how like empty it is. And in my time last year, when I took a lot of time off, I had like a little mini retirement midlife crisis. I was doing my same, like, I really just had a lot of time on my hands to think. I was going super hard in fitness, like I always have. I've done tons of crazy stuff in fitness. I've done ultra marathons. I've done fighting. I've always power lifted hard. And beginning last year, I said I'm going to dedicate a couple years to bodybuilding. And so spent a lot of time studying bodybuilding and really engaging in that. I'm kind of deciding now, do I want to go on and compete and like try to turn pro? There's a whole level of commitment and dedication that comes with that takes away from some other things in my life. So
yeah, the diet part's insane.
Yeah, and I'm really in that right now. Just like maximum amounts of food, everything's tracked, like very, very, very disciplined. Because I put on 25 pounds of muscle in the last year.
Holy crap.
I put on a lot. Now, granted, I had just come out of a period where at the end of 2022, the last 6 months, I didn't work out at all. And that was the first time in a decade that was true. I was super burnt out. I took 6 months off. And so I had deflated a lot of like muscle that I previously held. And so my scale back was a little bit easier. But yeah, I mean, I've put on 25 pounds of muscle in the last 18 months. And I intend to probably put on at least another 25.
Jeez, you're going to be jacked.
I'm going to be huge. I mean, I'm already huge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm a big guy.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm 230 and, less than 15% body fat. I'm not like crazy build, but I'm a heavy dude for sure. I have insane genetics for like muscle building. But anyway, so I was like studying a lot of that, that was keeping my mind busy. I was spending a lot of time thinking about, things other than business because it just really wasn't stimulating me. And that's always been my thing. Like I was never super driven by money. I was never super, like if you had asked me pretty much any time over the last 10 years, like, why are you going so hard? Like the answer is almost always like, I don't want to be bored. Like I don't do well when I'm bored. I mean, I was a drug addict. It was like, I'm not good at like sitting down and being alone with my own thoughts.
Yep.
And I've learned to tolerate that and practice that as a skill, to some extent, but still, I don't like being bored. I don't like being idle. And that was pretty much always kind of why I did business. And so when I wasn't doing a lot of that last year and I was thinking a lot, I started to look at other things in the world and, starting to formulate some opinions around how I think things should be. I would like to be done with business other than I would like to be done with business as a requirement by the time I'm 40.
Wow.
And I'm sure I will invest and, maybe come across a project here and there that I really love and want to like sink my teeth into. But I think that I'm much more tooled to be like addressing social issues and like problems in the world than I am anything else. I've got and always have had really sound logic. Like I'm a smart guy. I'm not the smartest guy. But I am pretty like objective, stable, and like the thing that has always gotten me really far and allowed me to like really swing even above my weight class is just really sound logic and decision making and problem solving skills. And I think I have absolutely no fear or hesitation around conflict.
Wow.
I grew up in a really nasty environment with a lot of conflict, and it just doesn't seem to register for me the way that it does most people. And so I can sit and have a lot of hard conversations really well. And so I've got like a unique tooling to be able to have a lot of these conversations. And I think it's something I would like to really be involved in.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of issues, like I think where we struggle the most as people right now in the country is like we can't agree on basic facts even. You know what I mean? Like much less get on with like problems. And when I look around and I look at like what's driving culture right now, I don't like what I see. I think that it's pretty ugly. I think that it's pretty misinformed. And I think that we're regressing.
Yeah, so part of that culture you're talking about is the red pill movement, right?
Red pill movement, I think, is a big problem. And I think that it's that way for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm a guy who is about male personal development. I am the male personal development guy. Guys like me have been charging this mission in the right way for years now. Me, Cody Jefferson, Garrett J. White before he went crazy. Same with Sean Whalen, like before he went a little crazy. You know what I mean? Like those guys kind of went off the rails, but like all of us were on this mission of like really helping men and doing it in the right way and promoting good family values and being married and being a good husband, being a good father and being a good leader.
Yep.
And the red pill guys, none of them live that. You know what I mean? All these guys preaching this, they're heads.
They're single usually, yeah, or like dating multiple people.
They're single in their 30s, like dating terrible people, engaging in all the stuff that they say not to. Like they're not walking the walk,
right.
But they're being very, very loud. And they also like, they also fail to think critically. Like, dude, if I walked into the Fresh and Fit podcast or the whatever podcast, like I'd wipe the floor with those guys.
So Myron, I will say Myron's good at debating.
Being good at debating is one thing. And like guys like Myron, when you put them in a room full of idiots, can walk away unscathed because they're good at debating. But when you put multiple people who are good at debating in a room, best ideas are going to win.
Right.
You know, and that's where it failed. I mean, you put Destiny, who's also very great at debating, in a room with them all the time, and they don't stand a chance. Myron's okay. He's better at just being loud than he is constructing sound, coherent arguments. The other guy from that podcast, I don't even know his name because he's so stupid. Yeah, he is not smart. And so I think those guys are big problems. And I think that they are doing a very, very, very bad thing for men. I think they're sending them down a wrong path. And if you look at the nature of their following and just the way that those guys engage and show up online, they're very aggressive towards women, towards anyone who doesn't believe what they believe, who, you know, they're just not engaging in healthy conversation or conflict. No one seems to be caring about actually moving problems forward. They just seem to care about being loud. And I think that that's not good for anything.
Yeah, I think that movement started because of the feminist movement.
Yeah, and like, I think they've really perverted what any of that means as well. Like, take the basic definition of feminism, right? It's like, if you just look at the basic definition, like anybody would say they're a feminist. Like, it's like, okay, women deserve equal rights. Like, yeah, probably. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like 100%. Now, is there an expression of that movement that has pulled people away from good family values and is relatively perverted? Sure. But any idea becomes perverted. But when you start to attack feminism, like, you're attacking women's rights to be equal in the sense of voting or having rights or having the freedoms to do things that men do. It's like, it's silly. It is a ridiculous conversation that really is born out of a place that does not have growth at the heart of its interest.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big problem.
I think social media in general has just amplified problems.
Social media is a big problem. You know, sometimes I kind of want to get off.
Really? Completely?
Yeah, I think everybody would probably be a lot happier.
Yeah, because you look at life when we were growing up as kids. I caught the beginning of social media. It was very innocent, and there wasn't as much comparing.
Oh my God, I couldn't even imagine being a kid and growing up now.
Yeah, they're on TikTok. They got iPads in first grade. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a problem, you know, and like one of the biggest problems that I have with social media right now, and I have a really, really, really deep rooted belief that I've held ever since I got on social, is that anyone who has a platform carries a certain level of social responsibility to put out information that is helpful and as accurate as possible given current available data. And it doesn't appear that a lot of people who have platforms share that belief, which is absurd to me. Like, what I just said seems to make good moral sense. And I started to notice this a lot when I started studying a lot about bodybuilding. and fitness and nutrition is there is probably more misinformation coming out of the fitness and nutrition space than any other space that exists.
Wow.
You know, and a lot of these people, it's really interesting because they have perceived authority. I mean, you look at guys like Gary Brecka or Dave Asprey, who I know you've had on.
Both of them, yeah. Brecka gets a ton of, so does Asprey. They get a ton of heat.
As they should. You know, I mean, look, and I know you've had Lane on as well.
Yeah.
Lane Norton is someone who I respect at a deep, deep level. And that's because he shares the belief that I was just explaining a minute ago, also at a very deep level. Mm-hmm. And when you take guys like Gary Brecka or Dave Asprey spewing some things that are just verifiably untrue, and then you see them because they're great business people and salespeople working with high level names or, you know, whatever, this is a big problem. And like, let's take a Brecka example, right? Like one of the things that got super popular was Dana White's transformation.
Right.
And Dana White had a pretty cool transformation over 24 months, but really he just lost 30 pounds. Wasn't that crazy? And, you know, they did this whole video and it was basically like, you know, the cold plunge and the red light therapy and the exercise with oxygen, which, by the way, I own all three of those machines. Mm-hmm. I have Gary's oxygen machine. I've had red light therapy for a really long time. I have a cold plunge at my office. And so I'm not completely negating the validity of these things, but we are talking about a marginal gain here of 1-2% in improvement, where like you look at the bulk of what drove Dana White's transformation. Well, he got his diet in check, started tracking his food. He literally built an entire gym and started weight training every day. He got on testosterone. And in that video, Gary's like, yeah, we put him on testosterone. It's no big deal. Like he literally just blew it aside. Yeah. Like I'm someone who's played around with testosterone and performance enhancing drugs my entire life. To scoff at the impact of testosterone is ridiculous. Testosterone is the most powerful thing on the planet. You even look at every professional bodybuilder or aggressive steroid user. They would not take a single steroid before they take testosterone. It is the base for every cycle that they run. Without testosterone, none of it matters. Yeah. Testosterone is the most powerful performance enhancing drug. It is crazy how much that can do. And so if Dana White got on testosterone, started weight training every day, and controlled his diet, no wonder he lost 30 pounds. And the video gets positioned in a way where it's like, no, it was the cold plunge, it was the red light therapy, it was the oxygen machine. That's what did it. And I mean, it's unethical, in my opinion. And that's a drastic take on it. A less drastic take is that it's just a lie. You know what I mean? And it's maybe a well-intentioned lie. Maybe it's an unconscious lie. But, you know, you can't think Gary's that dumb. Yeah. You know, the guy can't be stupid. I mean, you've talked to him.
I've had him on twice, yeah. I think overall he means well. He wants everyone's health to get better. So that's my dilemma with him because I know he gets a lot of criticism from...
I think he probably does want that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that... But it's like, okay, at what point... You know he knows. You know he sees the videos. You know he has read everything that Lane has ever put out about him.
Oh, yeah.
And he has declined to meet with Lane in person.
I was going to have them debate on my show.
Dude, that would have been awesome.
That would have been legendary.
I can't wait for the day that happens. But it doesn't appear that Breck is going to do it because he knows. He has to know.
That's the format I want social media to switch to, actually.
I couldn't agree more. I really, really, really like that. You know, let me ask you this. What do you think about social responsibility for those people who have a platform?
I agree to a certain point. My job as the host is just for them to provide their messaging, and I kind of want the audience to decide like how they take it.
I wanted to ask you about that because you have so many people, and I don't mean what I'm about to say offensively, but you have so many people on all across the spectrum, from tremendous people to people who are spewing ignorance and whatever. And I was really curious about what your take is. And because you as the host, you don't take a strong position on any of it. But it's like, because of the volume, you have one of the most successful podcasts in the world, and you are probably pumping out more content and volume than almost anyone. And so you've kind of organically fallen into this place where, you are one of the clips coming out of your podcast, not you, are probably one of the greater sources of misinformation online right now.
Yeah, depending on the guest.
Depending on the guest. And there's a spectrum, right? But just because you have such a high volume, you have a ton of great information. I spent the last 5 days really ripping through your catalog and kind of preparing for this.
Yeah. I mean, the Asprey one alone with the mold, if you consider that misinformation, that one alone got like 10 million views.
I don't think I do. I think there's a lot of ridiculous stuff that Dave Asprey says and about his reversing aging and longevity and stuff. I don't think mold. Mold, I think it's pretty accepted that mold is in coffee.
It's something I have to be careful with. I got a strike on YouTube yesterday for medical misinformation.
Did you?
It's my second one. So
how many do they give you?
3, and then you're gone. So I definitely have to be careful with the medical stuff. That's like the one space they don't mess around in on YouTube.
And that makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense. That sucks though. I mean, that you're it too, because it's like, look, like, because I was wondering, I wonder what Sean does think about this.
Yeah.
Like, is Sean a free speech absolutist? Like, is he?
I like free speech. I think, it can get tricky at the level I'm at now, where it's influencing hundreds of thousands of people.
What do you think about censorship?
I'm not a fan.
At any level?
I would have Alex Jones on my podcast. Would you have him on yours?
Only if you knew I was going to come at him very aggressively.
Really?
Yeah, I wouldn't give him free reign.
Well, he will debate people.
Yeah, for sure. But it's like, it is really, really hard to get somewhere in a debate with Alex Jones, because he is such an...
Once his mind is set, it's set.
Entertainer and showman, and like, he can't stay on topic.
Yeah.
I just recently went down the Sandy Hook rabbit hole of everything that happened with him, and was a little bit more disgusted than I thought I was going to be.
Really?
Yeah, man, if you look at the stories from a lot of those families, and being a father changes things. I mean, I have nightmares about school shootings.
Wow.
Just the thought of losing a child to a senseless shooting is so painful to even think about. And when you try to put yourselves in the shoes of what those families went through, and then you stack on this erratic conspiracy theorist, I mean, crazy. There was one family who had to move 10 times after losing their kid in a school shooting because of Alex Jones's followers.
Because his address kept getting leaked?
Yeah, and they were getting so many death threats and people showing up at their house. They had to move. Like, imagine losing your child and then having to move 10 times because some crazy right-wing psychopath is out spewing ignorance on the internet for money to sell supplements.
Do you agree with that lawsuit verdict, though? Because that seemed pretty crazy to me.
I don't know, man.
$1 trillion or something crazy?
The dollar amount, like, I probably don't agree with. I don't know how you value that. I don't know how,
They just wanted to bankrupt him, it felt like.
And you could probably make an argument that he deserves it.
Really?
100%. I mean, but it's like, that is a very challenging moral conundrum.
We're talking extreme examples, but no, I would have on just about anyone, because I think it's important to at least hear their side, because what would the alternative be? They're going to still do their thing, you know what I mean? Might as well.
And like, I understand the argument for that, but I also, for me personally, I think I would then feel a level of like culpability.
You think they will influence part of your audience and you're scared of that?
Not even that it's my audience, just that they're influencing anyone at all in things that I consider to be morally reprehensible, and that I potentially gave them a springboard to do so.
Okay.
That is, and it also, it is like, I can't say that I have a concrete stance on this or not. It is something that I'm wrestling with.
Yeah.
And something that I think you are in a position right now where, if I was in your position right now, I would really be wrestling with it.
I'm tiptoeing the line. I just had Sneeko on, who was very controversial.
I want to talk about the Sneeko episode.
Oh yeah.
Sneeko is a character who has obviously been involved in the red pill space, which I completely despise. And Sneeko's not one. He's not one of the ones that, like, I think is particularly atrocious. I think the fresh and fit guys, I think they're very bad. Sneeko to me has always come off as a little more reasonable, but his most recent podcast with you, I thought was very bad.
Really?
I thought that
Which topics?
I thought that was disgusting. Basically all of them.
All of them?
And so let's start to dissect some of them. So the first clip that I saw was the age of consent conversation.
Yep.
And this is absurd to me, and Sneeko was like, I'm on the front lines of the culture war. I'm like, dude, you think that you're like making an argument to better culture, and what you're actually doing right now is making an argument to 14-year-olds. It's like, what are you talking about? Right? Like, what the are we talking about this for? Like, are you really that desperate to teenage girls? Like, come on. It's like, you're a smart-ish guy. Do something productive. Do something helpful.
Yeah.
Like, stop talking about this. And like, the problem is, like, and then he's like, okay, and then let's move that one. Ridiculous.
Yeah, the age of consent one.
The age of consent one.
So for people watching, he wanted the age of consent from 18 to be lowered, basically.
Yeah, and it's like, what? Like, what? Why? Why
So
would
you think 18 is a good number?
I think it's a fine number.
Okay. Yeah, because some states are 16, some are 18.
And so, like, look, if some states are even younger, like, why are we talking about it then?
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's like, dude, when I was like 23, I remember thinking that like 19-year-olds look too young for me. You know what I mean? And like, as you get older, the age gap like that becomes a little less relevant. But it was like, it didn't take me to get very old to think that like teenage girls looked really young. You know what I mean? And like, out here, we've got this guy who's like damn near 30 talking about the age of consent should be lower. It's like, how is this helping anyone? Why are we talking about this? Like, have you actually thought about what you're saying? What you were saying is that I think I should be able to younger chicks than 16 or 17 in some of these states.
Yeah, well, he was referencing the Dr. Disrespect situation where the girl was like, what, 17 or something? I don't know the details.
Yeah, and look, the Dr. Disrespect situation, I haven't dove into it as much as I have some of these other things because it's relatively new. It seems like Dr. Disrespect was communicating with someone who was 17 through a Twitch channel. And did he say questionable things? Do you know?
I don't know exactly what was said.
I don't know what the nature of the conversation was either. I know Dr. Disrespect came out and said, hey, Twitch looked at this. I was, basically all like wrongdoing on my part was considered not real. He's like, I washed my hands clean of this. It was no big deal. If that's the case, maybe release the conversations and let everybody decide. I don't know.
If that was the case, he should have announced it way sooner. Because if he knew this whole time that was why they banned him, that's kind of weird to me.
If that was why they banned him,
that's why they banned him.
For sure.
Yeah.
Then you have to think that he probably did something wrong.
That's what I'm saying. Why would you keep it quiet for 3 years?
I can assure you that Twitch didn't want to get rid of Dr. Disrespect.
No, he was their biggest streamer at the time.
100%.
So it must have been something.
It must have been something, right? And so if that's the case, then like, yeah, we've got a whole different issue on our hands, right? But like to take that and then say, yeah, you should be able to younger chicks, like that is just ridiculous. That's insane to me, dude.
Yeah, that was a wild take. I saw the comments on that one too. But that's the thing with my show. Like I see the comments and I wonder if he's actually influencing people to think that way because most of the comments were fighting back on it.
He is though, bro.
You think so?
He is. And you got to realize how impressionable all these young men are. And then, okay, let's start to get into the topic that Sneeko went into of religion and morality. So I'm pretty much a lifelong atheist. I was raised in a family that was relatively agnostic. I grew up in one of the most religious parts of the country in Missouri and was always very, very confused just by the whole thing.
Wow.
And I spent time seeking it and like trying to figure it out and trying to find some sense of faith because basically everyone around me had it. And the more and more I saw how religious people express themselves, the more and more I was around churches, the more and more I was around religion, the more I grew to dislike it.
Wow.
And when you look at the history of it, I think that it's harmful.
Religion.
Every
single one?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, I really do. And there are only a couple like real takes to have on religion. One is that like it's true, like we're looking at historical fact. I think that one's pretty easily broken down. And I don't even think most Christians believe that. The other is that it's useful for society, which I think there are some stronger arguments for than some of the other takes. And when I heard Sneeko on your podcast talk about religion, I came to realize that he just really hasn't thought about it as much as he thinks he has. And it's because he took probably the weakest argument of them all, is that there is no morality without religion. That is probably the weakest argument that religious people take. Because number one, you can clearly describe almost an infinite number of scenarios where morality and the idea of good and bad exist agnostic of religious text or teachings. And let's look at a couple examples, right? It's like, take a toddler, maybe like 2-3 years old. Never been to church, can't read, doesn't even know what the word God means. If he sees his mother crying, he is going to console her.
Right.
He's going to say, Mommy, what's wrong? How can I help you? I love you. He knows that he should do something to help her, right? It's like, where did he learn that? And I always, like, an extreme example that I always say, you have a girlfriend, right? You guys have been together pretty seriously.
Yep.
You love her. Pretend religion never existed, okay? I punch you in the face as hard as I can. It hurts, right? You're like, wow, that didn't feel good. And I say, okay, go do that to her now. You're obviously not going to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And why? Because it didn't feel great and you don't want to inflict pain on someone, or because you don't want to go to hell?
The first one.
Yeah, obviously. And so it is not hard to determine right and wrong without religious text or teachings. It is something that is baked into the psyche of humans. You know what I mean? And obviously some people's view on those things are different, but at a fundamental level, you can make decisions around what is right and wrong without any of that.
Yeah.
Then when you go deeper into the morality of religion, it starts to get even messier. You look at, all through the Bible, all through the Quran, there are heinous acts of ethnic cleansing, slavery, a million different things. I mean, dude, in the Quran, where Sneeko apparently gets all his morals, if a wife does not obey her husband, he has free reign to do whatever he wants. Beat her.
If a wife doesn't obey? Wow. And that's subjective too, right?
100% subjective. Yeah, he can beat the shit out of her. It is his right to do so, sanctioned by God.
Wow, I didn't know that about the Quran.
And that is crazy to me. That is crazy to me.
Yeah, I would never lay my hands.
When you look at extremely Islamic cultures, you see some of the crazy, because Islam is the only religion that glorifies martyrdom. Christianity doesn't do that. Christianity is a religion that is based out of weakness, and it is good to be meek. Islam, they want power, and they've wanted power since the day it was invented. And they're the only religion that glorifies martyrdom. And you have obviously, and like people take the argument of like, well, look, well, every Muslim isn't some extreme jihadist, but you would be shocked at the amount of non-jihadist Muslims who still glorify martyrdom. Islam is a scary religion to me because it is directly dangerous, in my opinion, and we see it all over the world. Christianity is indirectly dangerous, in my opinion. It simply just teaches you not to think for yourself, and its entire moral fabric is based on not burning it in hell for eternity. It's like, why didn't you beat the shit out of your dog this morning? Right? Like, because you didn't want to burn in hell? Like, no, that's not why I didn't do that. You know what I mean? But that's what they teach you. When you do wrong, they fearmonger you into saying, hey, if you don't follow this, this, and this of the Lord, you're going to hell.
You sinned.
You sinned. You will burn in hell for eternity. That is the trade-off, right? And that's what we teach our children in churches, is that, hey, you do this or you burn in hell forever. And that's how we're teaching people to be good people. That's how we're teaching people to be moral. Does that seem moral?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. You can control people with fear.
1,000%.
The media does it.
1,000%. And so it's like, look, back to Sneeko on him saying there is no morality without religion. It just appears to me that he hasn't really thought about that as much as he thinks he has.
It was weird timing because the Tates just announced they converted, and then he did it like a few months later.
Well, and that's the interesting thing about, the Tates, and then like we are seeing a real resurrection. Like, I was hopeful in my late teens and early 20s that I might live to see pretty much the eradication of religion.
Wow.
I was hopeful that we were heading in that direction. You were seeing a lot more young people adopting a secular mindset. We were kind of seeing religion trend down, but now we're seeing a resurgence in a lot of these areas. And what I think is interesting about the Tates and them, I think it was just Andrew, converting to Islam and ultimately a lot of people following it is Islam is a misogynistic, which I don't like using that word just because it's become such a buzzword and people don't take it seriously anymore.
He hates that word too.
What?
He hates that word too.
Oh, I'm sure he does. But it is misogynistic religion. You know what I mean? There is no greater oppression of women than there is in the Nation of Islam.
Is that the country where they wear the...
Yeah, so Islam or, Muslim religion, at every level of like extreme, because there's just so many levels. Like picture it like a circle, right? Like in the circle, you have really, really extreme jihadist Muslims. Then a broader circle, you kind of have like Islamists who are like pretty devout and traditional Muslims. Mm-hmm. And then you just kind of have like modern Muslims, right? But all through it, it gets more extreme as you get closer to the circle. And they force women to cover themselves. They force women to do all sorts of things that they don't want to do. Women aren't allowed to speak in public. They aren't allowed to show their faces, their skin in public. If they disobey their husband, it is sanctioned by God for him to do whatever he wants.
They can't speak in public?
In some of the more extreme circles. But all of this is derived from the Quran.
Right.
Apparently, Sneeko's source of morality. Mm-hmm. And so that's all very confusing to me. And I think why we're also seeing resurgence in Islam in these red pill young male circles is because it gives men so much freedom. They're like, oh, God said I can do whatever the I want. And like, if this girl doesn't listen to me, I can beat her. It's like, yeah, if you're a complete psychopath, I'd probably like that too.
Yeah, I think Myron is Islamic too, I believe. Of
course he is. You know what I mean? It gives you free reign to do whatever the you want to women.
Does the Tates being proven innocent recently change your opinion on them at all?
No.
Really?
No. I mean, I still think they're dangerous-ish. Less about them being proven innocent. They've really let up on the craziness over the last year.
Yeah, definitely.
They become a lot more moderate and like chill. And here's always been my thing with the Tates. It's like, do they say some that is helpful and smart and useful? 1,000%. They also say a lot of it's not, and a lot of it's really, really crazy. Right. And any of the good that they say is not unique to them. You know what I mean? It's the same we've heard everywhere. Basic success principles. And so it's like, why would you take this information from someone who also throws it in a bag with a bunch of really up information? That seems weird to me. And when you have so many people justifying, saying, well, this was out of context and, all this stuff, it's like the only thing that can be taken out of context and misconstrued is satire. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. For something to be taken out of context and for it to remove the responsibility of whatever that person said, right? To make it okay, they would basically have to be joking. They would have to be engaging in satire. Like, you can't say anything serious and then take it out of context and it be all up and all of a sudden you're washed away of like responsibility there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, they would have to be joking. And so a lot of these taken out of context things, they weren't joking. You know what I mean? Like, they just really said that. And so they've always been weird to me. Now, when they were on trial for a bunch of that stuff, and I don't know if you saw this, but the position that I took was this, and I still stand by this logic. So, to the best of our knowledge, when someone is accused of, they are falsely accused somewhere between 2 and 10% of the time.
Oh, that's it?
That's it.
I thought it'd be higher than that.
And so my take was, hey, there's a 90 to 98% chance that these guys did this. That's pretty high.
Statistically, yeah.
Statistically, right? I was saying, is it possible that like they fall in that 2 to 8% or 2 to 10%? Yes, 1,000% possible, right? But if we were just to make the soundest bet that we could, based on data that we have, there's a 90 to a 98% chance that these guys, these women, mm-hmm. You know, if I pointed out someone in public and said, hey, there's a 90 to 98% chance that that guy's a rapist right there. Why don't you let him educate your son on how to live his life? Do you think that you would take that?
No.
You think you would say yes to that? No way. And so I was just like, statistically, this is probably the most sound assumption that you can make. Now, is it possible that they will be exonerated of that? Yes.
I think they just were, right?
Yeah, I think they, like last week or something. And I said, if they were, then I will say, yes, this was, they fell in the 2 to 10%, right? I never said those guys did it. I never said, I did say they probably did it based on data. But I still stand by that logic. And someone please tell me how that's wrong. You know, I'm waiting.
It's hard to argue with numbers and data.
For sure. You know, and so I like, that was my position at the time. I've talked about those guys much less lately because like those guys aren't even the biggest problem anymore. It's the guys that they inspired, like Myron.
Yeah, Whatever podcast.
Fresh. Who's the guy from the Whatever podcast?
Brian, I think his name is.
I don't think he's that dangerous.
He's not. He's pretty laid back.
He's pretty laid back. He takes decent positions. The challenging thing with those podcasts is they do bring in a lot of really dumb women.
They have to. That's their whole show.
That's their whole show.
And even I have to sprinkle them in too to get views. That's the game we play.
Dude, in like, those women upset me. I think OnlyFans is probably pretty bad for society, but I also stand by people's right to be able to do that. And like, not gonna lie, if I was like a chick who was super hot and had pretty low talent for anything else and could make $20 million a year doing it, I'd probably do it too. You know what I mean?
That's respect that you could admit that.
You know, like I probably would. And like, I think that people should be able to do that if they want to. Do I think it's good for society? No. I don't think I do think that they'll probably regret it.
I don't want my daughter to aspire to be that.
No. No way. I think that's bad news.
Yeah.
But, you know, if we're going to start to censor that, there's other very dangerous things we should be censoring as well.
Well, Candace Owens wants to censor. She wants to ban it. That's a tough one, though.
I recently got off Twitter because they approved on the platform.
Yeah.
I said, I won't do this.
It's everywhere now.
I boycott this. I won't engage in Twitter anymore.
It just happened last week with Sketch. I don't know if you saw that, but
I saw that.
Yeah, it got leaked.
Yeah. And so I am very against being so on display. Like, because it was even happening to me. And like, dude, I'm a married man who like, I don't look at girls on the internet. I don't scroll like pictures of chicks.
Yeah.
But the platforms are conniving.
It's inevitable.
It's inevitable. Like, I'm a guy with tattoos, right? When I'm about to get a new tattoo, I look at a lot of tattoo accounts. If I start looking at tattoo accounts, I start getting shown chicks' asses with tattoos. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't, it's everywhere, right? And so it's already bad enough as is. And when Twitter started allowing full-blown on the platform, I said, I can't support this. I don't want to be a part of this. I deleted my account. I got off there. I started writing on threads. And I'm very against it being public like that. I think if people want to go seek in their little corner of the internet on their own, I think that should be allowed.
There are some concerning studies with that too.
There are a lot of, I think it's inarguably true that bad for you. But there are a lot of things that are bad for you that people still fight for the right to do.
Alcohol.
Alcohol is, and take it from me, you know what I mean? I love alcohol more than every single person who will listen to this podcast ever in the history of time. I love alcohol.
You like the taste of it?
I love everything about it.
Wow.
It is, I romanticize about alcohol more than anything else. I will throw my entire life away for alcohol.
Damn.
Like, I am so powerless over alcohol. I've been sober for 7.5 years. It is hard to overstate how much I love alcohol. I can't even describe to you what I would be willing to do for alcohol and drugs. I love it. It is the worst thing in the world. It is, and I'm someone who's been addicted to crack. Alcohol is the worst thing in the world.
Wow. There are some, there's some movement against alcohol recently, which I love. That's the one good thing happening right now.
Yeah, alcohol's dude.
Yeah, I think they're going to be really hurting.
I hope so.
There's a big holistic movement right now.
I hope so, dude. I think.
Same with Big Pharma. I really hope we could change that narrative because that's deadly too.
Yeah, I mean, especially for me, someone, it's like, look, you go through addiction and then go through recovery, and especially being like kind of living and existing through the opioid epidemic. I've lost so many friends to opioids and do you watch the show Dope Sick with Michael Keaton? It was, a Hollywood produced show, but about the Sackler family and the Purdue Pharma crisis, and ultimately what led to the epidemic. What they did was disgusting, and they're still walking free.
What?
Yeah.
I thought they got.
I don't think they can do business anymore, but none of them are in jail. Dude, the FDA awarded Purdue Pharma a special label reiterating how non-addictive OxyContin was.
What?
Yes.
They paid him off.
Dude, I'm telling you, watch that show.
I gotta watch that.
And like, I also went and referenced like the historical accuracy of like what they presented in the show versus the facts. It's a really good show. Acting was, I love film. The show was awesome. But also like made me so mad. Because dude, I lose a new friend every year.
Holy crap.
From back in the day, because most people don't make it out of addiction. I think 4% of people get sober.
That's it?
Stay sober. Yep.
Damn. I thought it was higher than that. 4%?
No, it's nasty, dude. It's nasty.
Holy crap.
And so, yeah, Big Pharma is a problem. But they do some decent things too. You look at, take right now, weight loss, for example. These new GLP-1 drugs, Ozempic, Wegovy. Yeah, I first tried Semaglutide as a weight loss tool in 2017.
Wow. Because
I've always been around peptides and I've been down to be a guinea pig and like use different performance enhancing drugs. So I've known about these drugs for a while, and what's interesting is you've got a lot of fitness people hating on this. And maybe for someone like me, if I'm like cutting 20 pounds or whatever, like, or someone who's like reasonably fit and wants to lose 10 pounds, like, yeah, you probably don't need to go with that. But when a drug has just come out, and Semaglutide is the generation 3 drug of these drugs. We're now in approval stages for generation like 6 and 7 of new types of GLP-1 agonists that are even better with less side effects. And so there's a lot of really great drugs coming out for this, and they're really, really, really effective at helping people lose weight. And when you have someone who's obese, when they're 50, 60, 70 pounds overweight, and you help them, you give them a drug that helps them lose 40 or 50 pounds in a year, that is insane what it does for their lifespan, for their risk of cardiovascular disease, for their risk of stroke. These drugs are really, really powerful. Probably some of the most impactful drugs, considering how fat America is, that we are going to experience in our lifetimes. And you've got a lot of people hating on it, which I don't understand. It's just simply...
There's a lot of negative PR about it, actually.
I just don't see how why there would be. You know what I mean? Like when you are obese and you lose 50 pounds, what happens to all of your health markers is astounding. Astounding.
Yeah, being obese is the greatest risk to your health.
Oh my God, it's so bad. It's so bad. And when drugs are now coming out that can really, really help that. I've taken the drug. You straight up are not hungry ever.
Wow.
You don't want to eat.
And fasting's actually good for you too.
Yeah, fasting has a lot of benefits. I think it's been people who I respect seem to think that it's been overhyped. I love it as a mental challenge. At least once a year, I do a 3-day fast. Every once in a while, I go through phases where I'll do like 24-hour fast, like once a week. Yeah. I've found a lot of personal benefit from it. A lot of the science-based people, though, don't really seem to think it does all that much.
Really?
Yeah, if you ask like Lane or, who should really try to get on is Dr. Mike Israetel.
I'd love to have him on.
Dude,
He's
he's awesome.
I think he went on Huberman or something.
He is, what I love about him is like, he is such a beautiful expression of like just the purest opportunity of social media. Like you've got this guy who's like probably kind of autistic. He's a PhD in sports science, you know, and so he just loved studying sports science. He's a bodybuilder himself, and he's a PhD and was a college professor. Like the dude just loved talking about bodybuilding and bodybuilding. And, you know, 5-6 years ago, started a YouTube channel, and he's just got this like perfect amount of just like autistic humor and like self-deprecating humor, but he's also really smart, and he walks the walk. And like now, you know, he lives this life where he's got millions of followers on YouTube and probably makes millions and millions of dollars a year. And I mean, he's the #1 name in sports science right now. And I just think he deserves every bit of it. I agree. You know what I mean? And I think that's such like a beautiful expression of the opportunity of social media.
For sure. Have you looked into side effects of bodybuilding?
Oh yeah, it's not a super healthy sport.
Look at Ronnie.
Yeah, I mean he's taken some damage for sure.
He can't walk.
No, bodybuilding is not for. Like bodybuilding at a high level is definitely not for people who want to live a long time or like be as healthy as possible.
So you're kind of figuring out where you want to.
I'm figuring out where I want to exist in that space. How much of a trade-off am I willing to make?
Yeah.
Because I think I do want to live a long time. But I also want to seek how far I can push myself.
Are you natty fully, or
no?
You're taking stuff.
Yeah, I've taken testosterone for a long time.
Okay. Well, that I don't consider like. Is that a steroid? Testosterone?
No, but people definitely don't consider you natural if you take testosterone. I've taken anabolic steroids before.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, but like we're talking about doses that are like 1/10 of like what most people do.
Got it.
Mostly, I've just taken testosterone and played around with different peptides.
Okay. What's your testosterone level?
Oh, probably like 1200.
Holy. Dude,
yeah,
I run my like 500.
I run my test high.
Dude, 1200 is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like usually like pretty hot and like sweaty.
Dude, your sex drive must be insane.
Irritable. Honestly, my sex drive's a problem.
Yeah,
and that's the thing with peptides too. Peptides are crazy because peptides really are like the future of science. I'm very passionate about peptides. One of the projects, I'll just say it now. One of the projects that I'm launching is in this space.
Okay.
I haven't announced it. I haven't talked about the details of it at all. I've been working very diligently on it. But I believe in this space, and I believe in these GLP-1 drugs. I believe in peptides. I believe in hormone optimization. Very, very much as I've ever believed in anything, which is why I am investing in it and raising money and really going all the way in on it. I think peptides are the future of medicine, man. I mean, what they've been able to do is crazy, even just for me in my personal life. I was a diagnosed insomniac at 16. I've been on prescription sleep meds since I was 16. And, you know, for many, many years, I struggled to fall asleep. Around 25 or 26, I kind of figured out falling asleep. And this is when like a lot of the wearable tech came out and you could start tracking your sleep. Yep. And it turns out I was getting no REM or deep sleep. I would sleep for 6 or 7 hours and get a combined 15 minutes of REM and deep sleep. Yeah, it was just basically nothing was happening, no restorative sleep. And so I was like, all right, what am I going to do? You know, I talked to doctors. I looked for a ton of solutions. Never really came up with anything. There's a peptide called DSIP, deep sleep inducing peptide. And I went on it for 2.5 months. And next thing you know, I was sleeping about 6 hours a night at that time. And in those 6 hours, I was getting 2.5 to 3 hours of REM and deep sleep.
Holy crap.
And here's the thing. I went off of it and it never went away.
What?
Yes.
Wow.
And like, disclaimer, that is a personal anecdote.
Yeah.
That is what happened to me. But that is the first time that my eyes really opened up to the possibilities of peptides.
That's major. I need to look into that one because deep sleep is where you recover, muscle growth, everything, right?
And I mean, dude, I had tried a lot.
I bet. Probably tried everything.
You know, I mean, I'm a problem solver. You know what I mean? And that was a problem that I thought I was never going to solve. And that was 5 years ago.
Wow.
And I don't struggle with sleep quality now.
Holy crap.
Still. And I haven't taken it since.
That is nuts.
Isn't that crazy?
That's one of the craziest things I've ever heard. There's so many people that struggle with sleep, dude.
Yeah.
And they're on these sleep meds that are terrible for you, and they're taking them every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, screw that. I'd rather take a peptide. Did you have to inject it, or how did it work?
Yeah. But I mean, I've never been.
Every day or just once?
I think I was doing it 3 times a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
In your ass?
No, most peptides are like when you inject testosterone, some people do it subcutaneously, which means in the fat. I inject testosterone intramuscularly. Most peptides, pretty much all peptides that are injected subcutaneously into the fat. And so we're talking about little tiny needles this big. They don't hurt at all. I took some this morning because I'm taking some cognitive peptides right now. And so it's a little shot in your stomach. It's no big deal. I think that we're reaching a point now where like the general public is like starting to hear about peptides. Like we're still so early in this space. I was one of the early adopters. I was on forums buying peptides and research chemicals from China, foreign sites. Like, you know what I mean? All sorts of crazy people, direct labs out of China. Like I was in the world, right? Like seeking this stuff. But now it's like, I think things like subcutaneous little injections for health optimization will become much more normalized.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like, when you can inject something 3 times a week and completely fix the quality of your sleep, like the impact of that is pretty high and the trade-off is really good.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see that world. Brodie, it's been fun. Where can people find you, man?
Instagram at Brodie Kern. That's the best place. You know, I've got a lot that I'm doing, a lot that I'm involved in, but like we talked about on this podcast, like, dude, I just kind of want to be part of the conversation of like creating better ideas and better outcomes for people. Like I want to bring the conversation together so that we can agree on things and we can ultimately like have the hard conversations required to move things forward. Like you said, I would love to see social media take more of a direction where you have people engaging in challenging conversation in a way that is moderated.
That's what I'm going to start doing, like Patrick Bet-David does, debates.
Yeah, and so I think that that's really strong, and I would like to be a part of that conversation. And so if you guys enjoyed this, reach out to me, please share it. It's like I said, you know, business and money is cool, but like I want to be a part of like really helping.
I got you. I'll arrange a debate with you and a Red Pill guy.
We should do that.
Yeah, let's definitely do that. And if you guys need to film in Austin, you got a studio, right? Yep.
If you're in Austin and you want to shoot some content, we've got an amazing studio with a couple different shooting locations. I've got a full gym at my office, so if you want to come hang out, catch a lift, I would love to meet you guys. I love connecting with people that I meet online. And if there's anything I can do to help, hit me up.
We'll link below. Thanks for coming on, man. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, guys. As always, see you tomorrow.